That boarding pass says this is my seat.
Then find another seat.
Ma'am, step away from first class.
Flight 214 is grounded. Keep the aircraft door open.
You should have checked my name.
That seat is already occupied, the flight attendant said, though Nia Whitaker's boarding pass still showed 2A in black type beneath her thumb. Nia stopped at the entrance to the first-class cabin of Meridian Crown Flight 418. The air smelled faintly of coffee, leather conditioner, and overheated electronics. Her dark brown skin caught the blue aisle light, and the neat coils at the nape of her neck had begun to loosen after a 6-hour delay in Atlanta. A white woman in a cream travel suit sat beside the window in 2A, arranging a silk scarf across her lap as if she had been there all morning. The attendant looked at Nia's plain navy sweater, canvas tote, and worn loafers, then pointed toward the curtain. "Your seat is probably farther back." Nia glanced once at the placard above the row. "It isn't, 2A." The woman in the seat did not move. She appeared to be in her late 50s, with a lacquered silver bob and a gold luggage tag resting on the console beside her. "There must be some mix-up," she said, offering Nia the patient smile people used when they expected gratitude for being corrected. "I was told I could take this one." Nia held the boarding pass out. The attendant, whose nameplate Kelsey Van, barely looked at it. "Ms. Harcourt is one of our priority guests. We can place you in 6D and sort out any fare difference after landing. 6D is not first class. It's an exit row aisle. I booked 2A 3 weeks ago." Nia kept her voice level, though her fingertips had begun pressing into the edge of the paper. "Please, scan the pass." Behind her, boarding traffic thickened. A businessman shifted his roller bag from one hand to the other. A teenage boy wearing noise-canceling headphones lifted one ear cup and watched. Kelsey's smile thinned as the line stretched toward the jet bridge. "We're trying to get an on-time departure," she said. "You're holding up boarding." Nia looked past her toward the open cockpit door. On the instrument panel, an amber maintenance advisory still glowed near the lowered display. She had noticed the same code reflected on the gate monitor when the crew arrived late. Most passengers would not have known what it meant. Nia did, and she also knew it should have been cleared before anyone closed the aircraft door. She returned her attention to Kelsey. "Scanning my boarding pass will take less time than arguing about it." Miss Harcourt gave a small laugh. "Honestly, I don't mind switching if she's going to make a scene." The sentence turned several heads. Nia felt the old temptation to explain herself before anyone asked, to prove she belonged in the cabin by naming the schools, the boards, the family office, the signatures that appeared on documents strangers never imagined she had seen. Her father had once told her that explaining too early could become another form of begging. He had also been wrong about plenty of things, but not that. "I'm not asking her to switch," Nia said. "I'm asking the airline to honor the seat assigned to me." Kelsey finally took the boarding pass and scanned it with the handheld reader. The device chirped once, then displayed a green confirmation bar. Saw the result before Kelsey angled the screen away. "What does it show?" Nia asked. Kelsey lowered her voice. "It shows 2A, but there may have been a manual reassignment." "By whom?" "I don't have to discuss internal procedures in the aisle." The teenage boy behind Nia raised his phone, not dramatically, just enough to frame the seat numbers in Kelsey's scanner. His mother touched his wrist and he lowered it halfway without stopping the recording. Across the aisle, an older black man in 2C watched Kelsey with the tired focus of someone who had seen a simple mistake become a test before. A gate supervisor stepped aboard, summoned by the stalled line. He wore a burgundy Meridian Crown tie and carried a tablet against his chest. Kelsey spoke to him first, quickly and quietly, using words like disruption, refusal, and passenger comfort. By the time she finished, Nia's seat assignment had become a behavioral problem. The supervisor looked at Nia instead of the boarding pass. "Mom, I need you to cooperate with the crew." "I have cooperated. Your scanner confirmed my seat. We can discuss compensation after arrival." "No. You can verify the assignment now." His expression settled into something official. "If you refuse the alternate seat, we may have to remove you from the aircraft." Nia heard the cockpit chime twice. A mechanic on the jet bridge stepped closer to the open door, looked toward the amber advisory, then at the supervisor. Kelsey reached for Nia's boarding pass again, but Nia folded it once and slipped it into her tote. "Before you remove me," she said, "write down that your system confirmed 2A." The supervisor tapped his tablet. Passenger declined reseating and became non-compliant. The words appeared on his screen while Ms. Harcourt remained beside the window, fastening her seatbelt. Nia read the supervisor's entry upside down as he completed it. The sentence had no seat number, no mention of the successful scan, and no record of Ms. Harcourt already sitting in 2A. It described only Nia's refusal. By the time the final passenger squeezed past her, the first version of the incident had been entered into Meridian Crown's system with the confidence of a fact. "What is your name?" she asked. "Evan Rusk, Customer Operations Supervisor." "And who authorized the reassignment?" Evan glanced at Kelsey. The seat was released for operational reasons. Nia looked toward Ms. Harcourt's gold luggage tag. Printed beneath her name was the logo of Crown Meridian Circle, the airline's invitation-only customer program. Additional reasons or customer status? "Mom, this discussion is becoming disruptive." The older man in 2C leaned toward the aisle. She asked a clear question. Evan turned to him with a softer expression. "Sir, we appreciate your patience. We're managing a seating discrepancy." "No," Nia said. "You recorded a conduct complaint." Kelsey drew a breath through her nose. "Bill, because you are refusing a crew instruction." Nia could hear the aircraft's auxiliary power unit pulsing beneath the floor, a low mechanical vibration that usually disappeared once a person settled into a seat. Near the cockpit, the mechanic still had not stepped away. He spoke briefly to the captain, then pointed at a maintenance tablet. The captain's answer was too low to hear, but the cockpit door remained open. Nia took out her phone and opened the airline's conditions of carriage, which she had saved before the trip. "Your own policy says an involuntary downgrade requires documented operational necessity, notice, and fair restitution. It does not say a preferred customer may take an assigned seat because she wants the window." Ms. Harcourt unfastened her belt halfway. "I never demanded anything. The gate agent said this seat was available." "Which gate agent?" Nia asked. "Oh, I don't remember his name." Kelsey stepped between them. "You may not interrogate another passenger. I'm asking because your supervisor claims there was a valid reassignment." Evan's tablet chimed. He read the new message, and his expression changed for less than a second before returning to its practiced shape. "Security has been requested." The teenage boy's mother whispered something to him. He lowered his phone to his chest, but the camera lens remained pointed toward the aisle, and noticed the red recording timer reflected in the dark window beside 1A. He had captured the scanner's green bar. Whether he understood its value was another question. The older man in 2C held out his hand. "Name's Arthur Bell. I heard the attendant say her seat was probably in the back before she scanned anything." Kelsey's face tightened. "Sir, please remain seated. I am seated." Nia almost smiled, but the humor vanished when Evan reached for the handle of her tote. She moved it behind her hip. "Do not touch my bag. I'm trying to clear the aisle. You can clear it by returning my assigned seat." The mechanic entered the cabin then, carrying a wired diagnostic unit with a cracked rubber grip. He stopped beside the cockpit and addressed the captain, not Evan. "Ground power transfer fault came back under load. Dispatch wants the aircraft held until engineering reviews the reset history." Evan looked toward him. "We're already behind schedule. Can that be handled after pushback?" The mechanic's stare lasted just long enough to make the question seem reckless. "Not with passengers aboard and the advisory active." Nia knew the fault did not necessarily mean danger. It meant the aircraft's electrical transfer system had not behaved as expected, and the proper response was verification, not improvisation. What interested her was Evan's reaction. He had just used the same logic on the airplane that he had used on her seat. The schedule mattered more than checking what the record showed. 2 airport security officers appeared at the aircraft door. Evan met them before they reached Nia. "This passenger refuses an assigned seat and is delaying departure," he said. Nia turned her phone screen outward. "My assigned seat is 2A. Their scanner confirmed it. I'm requesting that you preserve the scan log, the gate reassignment record, and his written report before I leave this aircraft." One officer, a woman with a sergeant's stripe, looked at Evan's tablet. "Does the system show her in 2A?" Evan did not answer immediately. Kelsey said, "There was a manual change." "Show me," the sergeant replied. Evan opened the passenger record. His thumb moved twice, then stopped. The reassignment field contained a timestamp from 11 minutes after Nia had boarded. And it had been entered while she was standing in the aisle. Arthur Bell saw Evan's face before Nia saw the screen. "That change wasn't there before," he said. The mechanic disconnected his unit from the cockpit panel. Outside the window, the jet bridge warning light began to flash. Yes. A moment later, the captain's voice came over the cabin speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, maintenance has placed this aircraft on ground hold. Please remain seated while we determine whether everyone must deplane. Evans stared at the falsified timestamp as the aircraft doors stayed open and the departure clock expired. The captain ordered a full deplaning 12 minutes later, not because of Nia, though Evans' incident report still made it look that way. Passengers stood beneath the blue aisle lights while Kelsey repeated that maintenance required everyone to return to the gate. Miss Harcourt gathered her scarf and stepped into the aisle without meeting Nia's eyes. As Nia moved toward the door, the security sergeant held up one hand. Before you go, I need a statement about the seating dispute. Here or off the aircraft? Off. But first, show me the boarding pass. Nia unfolded it from her tote. The paper had softened along the crease, but 2A remained clear. The sergeant photographed both sides, then asked Evan to display the passenger record again. He turned the tablet toward her with visible reluctance. The manual reassignment now showed Kelsey's employee code and a timestamp entered after Nia had challenged the seat. Kelsey stared at the screen. I didn't enter that. Evan's head snapped toward her. The code is yours. I scanned the pass. I never reassigned it. The sergeant looked between them. Then nobody touches this record until airport police document it. Evan's mouth tightened. This is an internal customer service matter. It became my matter when you requested removal for a seat assignment your own system still showed as valid. The teenage boy and his mother had reached the doorway. He hesitated, then stepped back far enough to speak without blocking the cabin. I recorded the scanner. His mother closed her eyes briefly, as if she had hoped he would stay out of it. Miles, I did, he said. It showed green, and she said 2A. Nia looked at him. Keep the original file. Don't edit it or post it. Evan gave a short, humorless laugh. You're instructing a minor now? I'm telling a witness not to destroy metadata. The mechanic glanced at her from beside the cockpit. This time, is in aviation, not operations. It was true, though incomplete. Whitaker Holdings had inherited a significant position in Meridian Crown through Nia's grandfather, then increased it quietly during the airline's restructuring. Nia chaired the family trust's transportation committee and had spent the past year reviewing fleet renewal covenants, maintenance reserves, and executive reporting. She was not the airline's owner, and she could not command the crew. She could, however, recognize when a company's culture treated records as obstacles. On the jet bridge, the passengers divided into two slow streams. Some headed toward the terminal. Others clustered near the windows, watching technicians gather around the aircraft. Arthur Bell stayed beside Nia. I can give you my contact information, he said. I heard the first exchange. You may get called by the airline. I figured. You could also get dragged into something you didn't ask for. Arthur took out his phone. That happened when they wrote a false version in front of me. At the gate podium, Evan spoke quietly with another manager, while Kelsey stood several feet away, pale and rigid. Miss A. Harcourt had already been escorted toward the lounge by a customer service agent. Her disappearance produced the neat impression that the original dispute had resolved itself. The sergeant took Nia's statement near the windows. Nia described the seat, the scan, the threatened removal, the late manual entry, and Evan's request to push back despite the maintenance advisory. She kept each fact separate, resisting the urge to explain what they meant together. Her father had taught her to dominate rooms. Her years in governance had taught her that clean records often did more. When the sergeant finished, Evan approached with a printed voucher. Meridian Crown is offering you travel credit and confirmed space on the evening flight. We'll review the seat issue internally. What happens to my current reservation? You've been removed from Flight 41E for noncompliance. The words struck harder than Nia expected. The morning had been built around reaching Baltimore before her mother's specialist appointment, a visit Nia had already postponed twice for trust meetings. The evening flight would arrive after it ended. You are keeping that designation? She asked. Pending review. Kelsey looked at Evan. That isn't what happened. He did not turn toward her. We'll discuss your statement separately. Nia folded the voucher once and handed it back. I'm declining this. Evan seemed relieved, as though refusal completed the portrait he had started. That is your choice. No, Nia said. My choice is to file a formal preservation notice before your review becomes another rewritten record. She opened her phone, attached photographs of the boarding pass, Arthur's contact information, the sergeant's incident number, and a request covering the scan log, reassignment history, crew messages, gate audio, maintenance communications, and every edit to her passenger record. Then she sent it to Meridian Crown's corporate secretary, general counsel, and the independent compliance monitor named in the airline's restructuring agreement. Across the gate, Evan's tablet chimed. The message reached Meridian Crown's corporate systems before Evan could decide whether to pretend it had not. His tablet displayed a red preservation banner across Nia's passenger record, locking the edit history and routing the file to legal, compliance, and the restructuring monitor. For the first time that morning, he looked less irritated than uncertain. Nia saw the change from across the gate, but the small satisfaction did nothing for the clock. Her mother's appointment began in 3 hours. Baltimore was still more than an hour away by air, and every alternative connection had filled while Flight 41 sat at the gate. She called her brother, Darius, before she could talk herself into sending a text. "You're still in Atlanta?" he asked. "The aircraft was grounded for maintenance." "That is not the whole sentence." Nia watched technicians wheel a power cart beneath the jet's nose. "Sir, a passenger took my seat. The crew tried to move me, then wrote me up when I asked them to check the assignment." Darius was silent long enough for the terminal announcements to fill the line. "And you're handling the airline instead of getting to Mom." "I'm trying to do both." "No, you're trying to win both." The accusation landed because it was not entirely wrong. Their mother had not asked Nia to attend the appointment for ceremonial support. She had asked because the specialist would discuss a new treatment plan, and because Darius had been carrying every appointment for 6 months, while Nia kept moving family trust obligations ahead of family life. "I can charter from Peachtree," Nia said. "There's enough time if I leave now. With what aircraft? I'll find one." "Nia, the weather north of Charlotte is already backing up departures. Stop solving this like a board problem." She looked toward the windows. Their low clouds had begun flattening the morning light over the ramp. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to admit you might miss it." Nia ended the call badly. Not with anger, exactly. With a clipped promise to call back after she had arranged transportation. The mistake was obvious the moment the screen went dark. She had turned his exhaustion into another obstacle to manage. At the gate, Kelsey stood alone beside the podium, while Evan spoke behind a glass service door with 2 regional managers. Her hands were clasped so tightly that the knuckles had blanched. When Nia approached, Kelsey glanced toward the office before speaking. "I need to correct something," she said. "Mrs. Harcourt asked the gate agent for a window after boarding started. He told me to make it work because she had complained about her original seat." "Who was the agent?" "Brent Salazar. He's already off the desk. Did he change the assignment?" Kelsey shook her head. "He told me to reseat whoever had 2A. I assumed your pass would scan red after the change. It didn't. You still told me my seat was probably in the back before you scanned it." Kelsey's eyes dropped to the carpet. "I did." Nia wanted the admission to feel clean. Instead, she remembered Kelsey reaching toward the tote and Evan turning a valid boarding pass into a conduct problem. "You're telling me now?" "Because Evan used my code for the reassignment." Her voice thinned. "He had my tablet while I was dealing with the cabin. If I report that, he'll say I authorized it." "Did you?" "No. Then put that in writing." Kelsey glanced again at the office. "You don't understand how this station works. I understand that your code is attached to a false entry, and I understand that I'm on a final attendance warning because my daughter had pneumonia in March." It came out faster than she intended. She pressed her lips together, then continued more carefully. "If I'm suspended during review, I lose my health coverage after 30 days. The answer complicated the neat line Nia had drawn between witness and participant. Kelsey had judged her, enforced the seat theft, and helped create the removal threat. She was also standing inside a system where telling the truth carried a cost Evan might never face. Nia opened a blank note on her phone. "Write exactly what you saw, what Brent instructed, who held your device, and when you realized the entry had been made. Send it to the compliance monitor, not station management. Ask for whistleblower protection in the first paragraph." Kelsey studied her. "Why do you know where to send it?" Nia hesitated. Revealing her role now could protect Kelsey, preserve the record, and stop Evan from controlling the review. It could also make every later statement look like fear of a powerful shareholder instead of recognition that the original conduct had been wrong. "Because I read the restructuring agreement," she said. Across the gate, Evan emerged from the office with a regional director and pointed directly at Kelsey. "Mrs. Van," he called, "turn in your badge and company device. You're being removed from duty pending an integrity investigation." Kelsey's face emptied. Nia realized Evan had chosen his first shield before compliance had even begun asking questions. Kelsey did not move until the regional director repeated the instruction. Then she unclipped her badge, set it beside the gate computer, and powered down the handheld device Evan had used. The gesture was small, but it changed the shape of the terminal. Until that moment, the airline had treated the incident as a dispute over a seat. Now it had begun assigning blame before the locked records could be reviewed. "On what basis?" Nia asked. The regional director turned toward her. He was broad-shouldered, gray at the temples, and wore no name badge on his suit. "This is an internal employment matter. You suspended the employee whose credentials appear on a disputed entry while the supervisor who possessed her device remains on duty." Evan stepped forward. Ms. Van admitted. "She mishandled the seating process." Kelsey looked at him. "That is not what I said." The director raised a hand toward her. "Do not discuss the investigation with passengers." Nia opened the preservation notice on her phone. The compliance monitor had acknowledged receipt and issued an immediate systems hold covering the passenger record, employee login history, gate video, crew messages, and device access logs. Beneath it was a second notice directing station management not to alter duty status in a way that could reasonably be viewed as retaliation against a cooperating witness without review from Corporate Labor Council. She turned the screen toward the director. "You may want to read the last paragraph." He took the phone only long enough to see the sender. His eyes moved from the monitor's name to Nia's, then back again. "How did you obtain this response?" "I sent the request. Passengers do not usually have direct access to the independent monitor. Most passengers do not read the public restructuring filings." Evan folded his arms. "This is getting theatrical." The mechanic from Flight 418 approached carrying a printed maintenance release worksheet. "Then this should help keep it practical," he said. "Operations asked the captain twice whether we could close the door before engineering answered the ground power fault." The second request came from Evan's station line. Evan's face hardened. "You were not part of the customer service incident." "No. I was part of the aircraft you tried to dispatch." The regional director took the worksheet and read the communication timestamps. The first request had been made 2 minutes after Evan threatened to remove Nia. The second came while the security officers were checking the reassignment record. Neither proved why Evan had pushed for departure, but together they showed a pattern Nia recognized from risk reviews. When verification threatened the schedule, he tried to move the operation past the point where questions could be asked easily. Her phone rang. The caller identification showed Mara Chen, Meridian Crown's corporate secretary. Nia stepped several paces from the podium before answering. "Nia," Mara said, skipping the greeting, "I have the preservation notice. Are you physically safe?" "Yes." "Did you identify yourself to station personnel?" "No." "Good. Keep it that way for another few minutes." The monitor is pulling authentication logs now." Nia looked through the glass wall of the service office. Evan was speaking rapidly to director, his hand cutting toward Kelsey, then toward the grounded aircraft. "Kelsey has been suspended. I saw the station entry. Labor Council is reversing it pending review. My mother's appointment starts soon." Mara paused. "I can have corporate travel place you on the next flight. The next flight is too late." "I'm sorry." Nia pressed 2 fingers against the cold window frame. She had expected authority to feel like leverage. Instead, it arrived beside the knowledge that she could preserve every record in the building and still miss the one place her family had asked her to be. Mara continued. "There is something else. The device log shows Evan authenticated the reassignment using Kelsey's unlocked tablet. He then changed the passenger status field from confirmed to seat dispute and entered the noncompliance note under his own credentials. Has that been independently verified?" "By the monitor and IT security. The original script remains intact. Seat 2A was never validly reassigned." Nia closed her eyes for one breath, then opened them. The result did not create her right to the seat. It confirmed how deliberately the record had been reshaped after that right became inconvenient. Send the findings to the regional director, she said, and include the no retaliation instruction. You should know the monitor asked why your notice cited the governance appendix by section number. It was the right section. Nia, they are going to identify you. I know. When she returned to the podium, the regional director was reading an email on his phone. He looked first at Kelsey, then at Evan. Ms. Van, your suspension is withdrawn. Remain available as a paid witness and do not surrender your benefits access. He faced Evan next. Mr. Rusk, you are removed from operational duty pending an independent integrity and safety review. Hand me your tablet. Evan did not reach for it. You're doing this because of who she is. The director glanced at Nia, still uncertain of the answer. Nia met Evan's stare. No. You are being removed because the logs show what you did before anyone here knew my name. Behind them, the gate display changed from delayed to aircraft out of service. The first consequence of Evan's removal was not an apology. It was a bottleneck. With Flight 418 out of service and the station supervisor barred from operational duty, Meridian Crown had to rebuild the departure plan under people who had not seen the morning unfold. Bags were pulled from the hold. Crews approached duty limits. Passengers who had blamed Nia for the delay now stood in 3 lines beneath the gate monitors, asking whether their connections, medications, and children's pickups would survive the disruption. The regional director introduced himself as Thomas Vale and moved the conversation into an unused conference room beside the lounge. Nia refused the chair at the head of the table and took one near the door instead. Kelsey sat across from her with a paper cup she had not touched. The mechanic, Luis Ortega, remained standing until Thomas confirmed that his maintenance statement would be treated separately from the customer complaint. We have verified that 2A remained assigned to Ms. Whitaker, Thomas said. We have also verified an unauthorized change to the record. Our immediate priority is restoring her travel and containing the operational impact. Containing it for whom? Nia asked. Thomas paused. For everyone affected. Then start with the passengers whose rebooking options are disappearing while we sit here. He nodded and sent a message directing the station to protect onward connections before offering upgrades or vouchers to elite customers. That was the first correction Nia had seen that did not depend on making her whole first. Through the glass wall, agents began calling families with short connection windows to the front of the line. Mara joined by video from corporate headquarters. Her image appeared on a wall monitor, framed by a bookshelf and the gray light of an early office. The authentication logs are preserved, she said. So are the gate camera feeds and the captain's communications. We have one unresolved issue. The system shows Brent Salazar initiated a service note before boarding, but it does not show an approved seat change. Kelsey finally lifted her cup, then set it down without drinking. He told me Miss Harcourt had threatened to move her company's travel account. Thomas looked at her. What company? Bexley Therapeutics. She said their executives flew Meridian Crown every week. Nia knew the name. Bexley was large enough to matter to a station manager, and small enough that losing its account could damage a quarterly target. The explanation was plausible, which made it more useful than a cartoon motive. Brent had tried to protect revenue. Kelsey had tried to protect the schedule and her job. Evan had protected both by turning Nia into the problem. Was there an account alert? Mara asked. I don't know, Kelsey said. Brent just said we couldn't upset her. Thomas requested the commercial services record. A minute later, Mara opened a new window on the screen. There was no account alert. Bexley's contract does not guarantee personal seat displacement. Ms. Harcourt is not an authorized travel administrator for the company. The finding removed one defense but not the conduct that had grown around it. Thomas looked toward Nia. I can confirm you on a charter repositioning flight, leaving for Baltimore in 45 minutes. It has 2 open seats. Nia's hand tightened around her phone. The offer would put her at the hospital before the appointment ended. It would also separate her from the review just as the incomplete evidence was being tested. Kelsey read the hesitation correctly. Oh. Nia looked at her. You told me to write what happened, Kelsey said. I did. Arthur sent his statement. The boy's mother gave the sergeant the original video. Hey, you don't have to stand here for the truth to remain true. The words touched the place Darius had already exposed. Nia had been treating her presence as another form of preservation. as though leaving would allow the record to collapse. That fear was not irrational, but it was no longer accurate. Mara seemed to understand before Nia answered. The monitor can continue without you. You will not issue final findings today, and no employment action beyond temporary removal will occur until interviews are complete. What about Brent? Placed on paid administrative hold pending contact. His access has been frozen. And Kelsey? Witness status, benefits unchanged. Nia stood. Then I'm going to Baltimore. Thomas began to offer a car, an escort, and access through the private terminal. Nia accepted the car and declined the rest. Before leaving, she asked for one additional action. Every displaced passenger from Flight 4 Wade was to receive written confirmation that the grounding resulted from a maintenance hold, not a passenger disturbance. Thomas agreed and ordered the correction posted to each reservation. At the curb, Luis caught up with her, carrying his crack diagnostic unit in one hand. Engineering found the fault, he said. A transfer relay was overheating under load. The aircraft would not have been released, so the grounding had nothing to do with me. No, he glanced back toward the terminal. But if they had pushed us away from the gate before the advisory returned, we would have spent another hour bringing everyone back. Nia thanked him and got into the car. As it pulled toward the private field, her phone received the first packet from the independent monitor. The attachment included the scan log, Evans' edits, and a commercial services message sent by Brent 6 minutes before boarding. It did not order anyone to give Ms. Harcourt seat 2A. It said, "Keep the Bexley traveler happy. Use discretion." The sentence left enough room for everyone involved to claim they had misunderstood, and enough pressure for the same thing to happen again. The charter's cabin held 6 seats and no curtain. Nia took the one behind the pilots, buckled in, and called Darius before the engine started. He answered on the second ring but said not until she told him she was 40 minutes from Baltimore. "I handled that badly," she said. "You did. I kept acting like the airline was the only thing I could still fix." Darius exhaled. In the background, a cart rattled across a hospital corridor. Mom's with the specialist now. They're reviewing scans before they decide anything. "Put me on speaker when they start." She asked me not to. The answer caught Nia harder than the earlier accusation. Why? 'Cause she's tired of both of us turning her appointments into proof that we care. The pilots began their checklist, calling fuel quantity and control surfaces in a cadence Nia understood well enough to know when not to interrupt. And she rested her forehead against the cool window. "Tell her I'm coming anyway. I already did." The charter lifted through a shelf of gray cloud while Meridian Crown's independent monitor began sending interview notices. He read them only after the aircraft leveled. And Thomas Vale, Kelsey, Luis, Arthur, Brent, and Ms. Harcourt had all been directed to appear by video that afternoon. Evans' interview would occur last, after the system logs and witness statements were entered into the record. Mara added a note beneath the schedule. "The monitor requests your participation from Baltimore. 15 minutes. 8 facts only." By the time Nia reached the hospital, her mother's consultation had ended. Darius stood outside the oncology wing holding 2 paper cups and wearing the same brown jacket he had worn through every appointment since winter. He handed Nia 1 cup without embracing her. "What did they say?" "The treatment is working, but not enough. We want to add another drug." "Side effects?" "More fatigue. Neuropathy risk." Nia looked through the narrow window in the door. Her mother sat inside, tying a silk head wrap beneath her chin, moving with the concentration of someone refusing assistance for one small task because she had needed it for too many large ones. "You missed the decision," Darius said. "I know. That was all he wanted from her at first." And not an explanation about delays, maintenance holds, or falsified logs. Just recognition that arriving before the hospital closed was not the same as being present when the decision was made. Her mother allowed Nia into the room after several minutes. She listened while Nia apologized, then asked whether the airline had returned her seat. "They confirmed it was mine. That wasn't my question." Nia sat beside the examination table. "No, I left before they could rebook the flight." Her mother smoothed one corner of the head wrap. "Good. Good? You've spent your whole life believing that staying in the room is how you keep people honest." She glanced at Darius. "Sometimes staying is how you avoid finding out whether anyone else will stand up without you." At 3 that afternoon, Nia joined the monitor's review from an empty family consultation room. Mara and Thomas appeared on one screen. The independent monitor, Judge Elena Sorrell, occupied another, with counsel seated beyond the edge of the camera. Sorrell began with the aircraft logs, not the seating dispute. He testified that the transfer fault required a ground hold and that operations had twice pressed for door closure before engineering completed its review. Thomas confirmed that Evan had made the second request. The issue was not whether the aircraft would have departed unsafely. The captain had retained final authority and had refused release. The issue was that Evan had attempted to outrun verification in two separate systems within the same 20-minute span. Then the seating record appeared. Nia's original scan showed confirmed status for 2A. Brent's service note appeared 6 minutes earlier. Keep the Bexley traveler happy. Use discretion. Kelsey described being told to move whoever occupied the seat, admitted she had judged Nia before scanning her pass, and explained that Evan later used her unlocked device to create the reassignment. Arthur's statement confirmed the words Kelsey used. Miles's unedited video showed the green scan bar and captured Evan calling Nia non-compliant before any valid seat change existed. The metadata matched the gate clock. Evan joined last. He looked tired but controlled. I made an administrative correction during an escalating passenger conflict, he said. My intent was to protect departure integrity. Sorrell displayed the timestamps side by side. You changed the record after requesting security. I clarified the operational reality. You manufactured the operational reality, Mara said. Nia spoke only when Sorrell asked what remedy she wanted. My passenger record. Protect the witnesses. Review every involuntary downgrade at this station for the past year where a conduct note followed a seat dispute. Separate elite customer requests from gate performance targets. And require a second employee to authorize any post-scan reassignment. Sorrell looked toward Thomas. Can those measures begin without waiting for final discipline? Yes, then begin them today. Evan leaned toward his camera. This entire proceeding exists because Ms. Whitaker has influence ordinary passengers do not. Nia looked at the scan logs still displayed on the screen. That is exactly why the review cannot stop with me. Sorrell ordered Evan's credentials suspended, the historical audit opened, and the passenger record corrected before the meeting adjourned. The final employment decision would follow after the wider pattern review. Outside the consultation room, Darius was waiting with their mother's coat over one arm. Nia closed the laptop and stood, leaving the screen dark while the audit continued without her. 3 weeks later, correction reached Nia in a plain envelope with no apology printed above it. Meridian Crown had removed the non-compliance flag, restored the original record for Seat 2A, refunded the full fare, and added a formal note stating that her removal threat had resulted from an unauthorized reassignment and inaccurate conduct report. The language was careful enough for lawyers and clear enough for anyone who searched her name inside the airline system. Her audit was less tidy. Judge Sorrell's team found 14 involuntary downgrades at the Atlanta station during the previous year where passengers had been labeled disruptive after challenging seat changes. 9 involved elite customer requests. In 6, the reassigned passenger was black. The numbers did not prove every decision had been racially motivated, and Sorrell refused to pretend they did. They did prove that vague service instructions, performance pressure, and conduct coding had repeatedly worked in the same direction. The Crown placed Brent on unpaid suspension after investigators confirmed he had issued informal orders to displace assigned passengers without documenting valid reasons. Evan was terminated for falsifying the record, using another employee's credentials, and interfering with both customer and maintenance verification. The final report noted that his request to close Flight 418's door had not overruled the captain, but it had violated the company's safety escalation protocol. Thomas Vale received a written sanction for failing to separate witness protection from discipline during the first hour of the incident. Kelsey kept her job. She did not keep her first version of herself. At the review meeting, she read a statement without looking at Nia. I was afraid of losing benefits, but that fear began after I had already decided who belonged in that seat. I saw her clothes, heard her tone, and assumed the system would prove me right. When it didn't, I treated the system like the problem. The statement cost her. Some coworkers stopped sitting with her in the break room. Others accused her of helping corporate blame frontline staff for policies executives had created. Kelsey accepted a 6-month demotion from lead cabin duties and agreed to train new crews on post-scan seat changes, but she refused Meridian Crown's request to appear in a promotional video about accountability. "She wanted my face next to the new policy," she told Nia during a call neither of them had expected to make. Nia said they could use the policy. Nia respected that more than the polished apology the airline eventually sent. She did not forgive Kelsey in any ceremonial way. She thanked her for telling the truth before it became safe, then ended the call without promising friendship. The reforms began at the gate where the incident had happened. Any reassignment after boarding pass validation now required dual authorization, a documented operational reason, and an automatic notice to the displaced passenger. Elite service requests were removed from station punctuality metrics. Conduct flags connected to seating disputes triggered independent review before they could follow a passenger into future bookings. Maintenance holds were displayed separately from customer incidents, so no station manager could merge the two into one convenient delay narrative. Nia returned to Atlanta for the first compliance test. She stood behind the same gate podium while 2 auditors watched an agent deny a senior executive's request for a window seat that belonged to a college student traveling home for a funeral. The executive complained, invoked his company account, and asked for a supervisor. The agent checked the record, explained the policy, and offered only seats that were actually available. Nothing dramatic happened. The executive took his assigned aisle seat. That evening, Nia flew to Baltimore in 2A. Arthur Bell happened to be on the same flight, several rows behind her, and raised 2 fingers in greeting as he boarded. Miles's mother had declined media interviews, and Miles had kept the original video private until the Monitor released its findings. The clip never became a spectacle. It became an exhibit. When the aircraft reached cruising altitude, Nia opened the treatment calendar Darius had shared. She had blocked every appointment for the next 2 months and delegated 3 trust meetings she once would have insisted on leading. Her mother had not thanked her for rearranging the schedule. She had simply asked Nia to bring the good tea next time instead of the hospital coffee. Before landing, Mara sent one final audit update. A passenger from Meridian Crown's Dallas station had requested review of a downgrade that followed the same conduct code and the same vague instruction. Used discretion. Nia saved the file without opening it. Then she closed the shade halfway, leaving enough light to see the city rising beneath the wing. 6 months after Flight 4 went eat, Meridian Crown released the final audit without using Nia's name in the headline. The report covered 42 post-scan seat changes across 4 stations and found that Atlanta's conduct codes had concealed a broader failure. Customer status pressure was being converted into operational language and attached to passengers who challenged it. Dallas showed the same pattern in 5 cases, but no evidence connected those decisions to Evan Brent or anyone above them. The problem had spread through incentives, imitation, and the convenience of records that rarely received a second look. The airline accepted every recommendation from Judge Sorrell's office. It created an independent passenger record appeal, required quarterly review of involuntary downgrades, and removed local managers' ability to finalize conduct flags connected to disputed seating. Meridian Crown also reimbursed the 14 Atlanta passengers identified in the first audit and contacted 21 others whose records required correction. 3 employees outside Atlanta were disciplined for unauthorized reassignments. 2 managers resigned during review. No one described the outcome as a cleansing or a transformation. It was a set of controls built because people had demonstrated what they would do without them. Nia attended the board session where the reforms became permanent, but she did not chair it. She sat halfway down the table while another trustee presented the Transportation Committee's findings. When the directors voted, the resolution passed without anyone asking Nia to recount the aisle, the scanner, or the moment security arrived. For once, the system did not require her pain to remain vivid in order for the correction to survive. Afterward, Mara handed her a narrow folder containing the final disposition of her claim. Meridian Crown had paid her documented travel costs, funded an external review for affected passengers, and agreed that no non-disclosure provision would cover the audit findings. Nia had declined a larger personal settlement tied to confidentiality. She did not need the money, but that had not made the choice simple. Darius had reminded her that refusing compensation could become another way of proving she was above being harmed. She accepted restitution for the missed travel and directed the remainder to a passenger assistance fund administered outside the airline. It covered lodging, childcare, and replacement transportation for people trapped by disputed removals while appeals were pending. The first quarterly report showed 11 claims approved. 80. None involved a first-class heiress. Kelsey completed her demotion period and returned to cabin service without recovering her lead title. On her first trip through Atlanta, she watched a gate agent scan a black veteran's boarding pass twice after an elite passenger insisted the aisle seat had been promised to him. The record showed the veteran owned it. The agent apologized for the delay, denied the request, and documented the encounter before boarding continued. Kelsey sent Nia a 4-word message afterward. It worked without a fight. Nia answered the next morning. That was the point. Her mother's treatment continued through winter. The added drug left her fingers numb on cold days, so Nia began opening tea tins and medicine bottles before placing them within reach, pretending not to notice when her mother pretended not to need help. Darius still attended more appointments than Nia did. The difference was that she no longer treated every absence as a problem to conceal with authority. When she could not come, she said so early. When she promised to be there, she arrived before the decisions began. In March, the three of them flew together to Charleston for her mother's birthday. Nia had booked economy because her mother disliked the ceremony of premium cabins, and Darius claimed every meal tasted better when nobody expected it to arrive on porcelain. At the gate, their seats changed after an aircraft swap. The agent explained the reason, showed them the new map, and asked for consent before separating the row. Nia watched the screen, then looked at her family. Her mother chose the window. Darius took the middle with theatrical suffering. Nia accepted the aisle. As boarding began, Mara sent a secure message about the Dallas Review. One corrected file contained a recurring employee code from a contractor that managed gates for 3 other regional carriers. The Meridian Crown cases were closed, but the Monitor wanted to know whether Nia would join a separate industry standards panel examining outsourced passenger records. Nia read the request once and placed the phone face down. Her mother was struggling with the zipper on her coat, and Darius had already made the problem worse by offering instructions from 6 feet away. Nia fixed the zipper, handed back the coat, and waited until both of them entered the jet bridge before picking up her phone again. She accepted the panel invitation, then followed her family aboard.